was a challenge that I encountered coming to a different market, because once you're in the European part, you know the European manufacturers. You come to North America, everything's different.
Welcome to Life with Strings Attached. I'm your host, Jamie Gale. Today on Life with Strings Attached, we're joined by Simon Padalka, the mastermind behind Padalka Guitars. Simon's journey into guitar making began in 2011 in his hometown of Krasnodar, Russia. Though he earned a master's degree in architecture in 2012, his passion for craftsmanship and design led him to trade blueprints for tonewoods, fully dedicating himself to building boutique electric guitars and basses. Coming from a family of architects, Simon developed a deep appreciation for high-quality materials, structural integrity, and refined aesthetics, elements that are now signature traits of his instruments. Participating in the Holy Grail Guitar Show in 2018 and the NAMM Show's Boutique Guitar Showcase in 2019 and 2020, Simon's reputation grew internationally as he showcased his work at these prestigious events. However, in 2022, faced with geopolitical challenges, he made the bold decision to leave Russia and restart Padalka Guitars in Canada, joining Dingwall Guitars along the way. Now based in Canada, Simon has refined his craft to an even higher level, focusing on a limited number of builds per year, ensuring that each instrument embodies his signature blend of refined design, flawless craftsmanship, and phenomenal playability. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Simon Padalka, and I hope that you do as much as I did. Simon, great to see you. Welcome to Life with Strings Attached. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. How are things out there in Saskatoon?
It's finally getting warmer.
Yes?
Yeah.
What does warmer mean?
Around zero.
Around zero.
We had a month of minus 25 and ending with a week of minus 40.
Right. And did you get that kind of weather growing up?
No.
No.
I'm used to winters like minus 5,
right.
Maybe minus 10.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're getting some proper cold weather now. You're getting Well, that's great. So there's so much to catch up on. It's been quite a while since we've spoken.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You've had a major shift in your life, and so I want to hear all about it. So Simon, I think that maybe it makes sense to just sort of start with some background. So if it's okay with you, can you sort of give our listeners who, maybe aren't familiar with the story a bit of a background, where you were born, when you were born, a little bit about your family and growing up, just the parts that you think are really important to understand about, if we took those parts away, maybe you wouldn't be who you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I learned to there's nothing that you can take away that wouldn't get me to where I am today. Like everything matters, but okay, so I was born in Krasnodar, Russia. It's south of Russia. Family of architects. I'm an architect myself. Studied for 6 years. I think in my 4th year, I started building guitars. So I was playing a little bit at school, a little bit at university, but just playing around.
Yeah.
Not like professional playing. And I was always technically minded and always drawn to the technical side of things more than using them. With mostly everything I did. And same with guitars. I was having much more fun fiddling with it than playing. And one day I found out that there's such thing as custom guitars, like custom built guitars. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And stumbled upon a forum thread, local Russian forum thread. The guys were amazing, posting like every single step. That was my introduction into building and seeing every single step. I felt like this could be something I can try, because I was always into woodworking, but never really had a chance to do it professionally. And I love fancy, high quality anything, basically. I was really into a high five for some time. Yeah, I tried building one like in my balcony. That didn't go well. I was relocated a few times. Finally, my dad helped me find a place to build. And yeah, I started building there. First guitars took maybe 9 months to build, because I didn't want to go the traditional way, like make anything and then do it again. Like no matter how bad you are at the beginning, just go through it. I didn't want to go that path. So most of the time I spent standing over the parts, thinking about how I'm going to proceed. So yeah, the goal was to make to achieve the best result I can possibly handle at that stage. And I think I did. It wasn't perfect by today's standard, but for the first guitar, it was really good. That was my ticket to start building, because I knew this wouldn't be approved. Like me pulling out from architecture and going to do something so out of the ordinary, especially in Russia. Like as soon as somebody asks what I'm doing, I'm building guitars. And what? Is that a thing? Can you make a living?
Yeah. I mean, when you said you're born to a family of architects, what does that mean? How many architects? Who were architects in your family?
My mom, my dad, and my elder brother.
Everyone.
Everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
So I really didn't know what I wanted to do like after school. And, okay, go become an architect, and decide afterwards. It's my dad always said like it's a good springboard for going in any direction, because it's so overarching profession. Like it's art and technical. You can orient which way you want to go once you get into it. And basically I did. And it's really helping.
Yeah, I don't know that the common person understands how much theory and art and design there is in architecture. I think a lot of people think of architecture as, the necessary part of making a building. I don't know that the common person thinks of architects as artists, and not all architects are artists. Like but there's a very strong, certainly in the education of architecture, a very strong push or theoretical sort of artistic sort of portion of it. With any architecture school that I'm aware of, was it the same with the school that you went to?
The school I went to was actually more inclined towards construction, engineering. So that whole school is a civil engineering basically, and they had an architecture like division.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when I think about architecture, it's mostly civil engineering.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Construction, materials,
Mm-hmm.
all those good things.
Right, right. I've been exposed to the extremes of both of it. So Enrico Di Donato, who you know from the Venice area, Enrico is a trained civil engineer and worked as a civil engineer for about 14 or 15 years. And that really informs his guitar builds. But also, you know, I've also worked with people like Ed Keller from the New School in Columbia. And Ed's very much a theoretical architect and talks about post-planetary architecture. You know, what does it mean when we're not dealing with gravity or humanoids even, you know, and the economies of all these things. And so and both those people have been guests on our show, you know, so you can go into a very theoretical conversation and check out our Ed Keller episode. If you want to talk about a more grounded sort of structural conversation, you can get out there with Enrico Di Donato. And each culture deals with architecture quite differently. You know, when I spent time in Italy, I found out that there's not so much of an industrial design school, that the architects are the industrial designers. You know, someone like Aldo Rossi, who, you know, is known not just for buildings, but for, you know, mocha pots and and chairs. These are all part of the domain of architecture. You know, is that the same, or how does that differ where you were educated? And were you educated in Russia, or am I remembering correctly that you went to Kiev for school?
Yeah, so my parents and my brother, all of them were studying in Kiev. Like, obviously, my parents, it was Soviet Union, so it wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
And my brother went to the same institution, and so later, me as well. So yeah, I studied 2 years in Kiev, and went back to my hometown, mostly because of political tensions. Yeah, no, I don't want to get political.
No, that's okay. That's enough. I mean, we all know that there's political tension between Russia and Ukraine at the point in time.
I wasn't, and so I didn't feel welcome there. Let's say.
Yep.
So, and those two schools are very much different, because the school in Kiev is more civil engineering. The school in Krasnodar was more like art oriented. And I'd say Kiev influenced me much more. It was a much stronger school, more established, and like the education was really good. So yeah, on my fourth year, so I was back in Krasnodar. I didn't feel like I'm doing a good job, or at least it wasn't really interesting what I was doing there. So yeah, I started fiddling with guitars, and when I finished my first guitar, I'm like, okay, I guess that's what I'm gonna do now.
Okay.
So yeah, I finished. I graduated, but yeah, my graduation project was a guitar factory.
A guitar factory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, even that didn't it wasn't enough to keep me in architecture.
Yes, yeah. And when you say you graduated, I mean, you actually have a master's of architecture. Like, you really finished. you didn't leave. You didn't get just a bachelor's, and you have a master's of architecture, which is, you know, a great accomplishment.
Yeah, and worked for some time, mostly in graphic design. No, not graphic design, like 3D modeling. And that's what most architects do at the beginning.
Yes.
That's how you start a profession, 3D modeling. Yeah.
Which became quite useful for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, I found another place to build. So actually another builder moved to my town. We rented a place together. So pooled some resources, got a little more equipment. He bought a CNC, and me being quite proficient with 3D programming, got hooked on it real fast.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So then, any other significant parts that you think that we should make as part of the backstory here?
Yeah, moved from that space. So I had a lot of relocations in my life, and including the workshops. I moved a couple of times. Around 2015, my then wife helped me with. We arranged that she was responsible for designs from building and other things. So she designed a line of models. Fast forward to 2022. We divorced, and then political stuff happened. I wasn't able to sell abroad, so no shipping. Like you could ship, but it was complicated, and more importantly, I couldn't get paid.
Right.
Yeah.
Couldn't receive money from
outside
the markets that you were used to selling to. Yeah.
Because I was primarily selling to the US.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided it was time to move and leave all the models behind.
Yeah.
So I only carried one. It was my original from 2012, the Ania base. So this is my legacy model. Everything else I designed from scratch after moving to Canada.
Right. I don't know if you know this, but do you know that there's a printed picture of your Ania base in my living room here in Canada?
Oh, really?
Yeah. 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 I love that instrument, that design so much. And it's the back. And we have the image that is really, really a beautiful, beautiful lines. And we had done light painting back in 2020 when we had that instrument on tour, which for those who aren't familiar with that means we have a very still place to put the guitar and a very still way of the camera. And you remote shoot them, and we light different aspects of the guitar, and then we layer them up in Photoshop afterwards. So you have to, but what allows us to be extremely specific with very complex curves, and your instrument has a lot of complex curves in it. And so that's something that is just beautiful, beautiful lines. And yeah, there's two pictures that we took on tour with us to show examples of doing fine art printing, and it's in a museum grade frame, and has been all around the world, but now it lives in my living room here.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like that concept. I'm actually also have a photographic background. My dad was really into photographing. I was as well.
Yeah.
Later in school. So it all comes together to the profession of guitar building.
Yeah, I mean, guitars are one of the things that we all love so much about guitars are the lines and proportions, the textures.
Yeah.
And that's something that that is so obvious in your work, is materiality textures, contrast, lines. You can kind of say that about anyone's work, but you really highlight that in a way that is unique to Simon Padalka, and it makes your instruments so identifiable. And that's one of the things I love about them, anyways.
Yeah, and speaking of Ania bass, I think it is one of those things that if that wouldn't happen, I wouldn't be there. Definitely. So it was 2012, so 1 year after I started building, decided, okay, I'm starting building. So the first ever, I think it was number 12 or something like that. The customer came to me with a contour, like body contour, just the outline.
Okay.
I want this. So it was a 7-string bass. We ordered a 7-string bass. I said, okay, printed out the outline, cut it out on the bandsaw. And I'm looking at this, such an intricate outline. I can't just leave it like a cutting board. I need to add some details into it. Like, are you okay with this? Sure, do whatever you want. So I traced some lines with a pencil and spent a day, I think, grinding it with a belt sander. So it was Northern Ash. If anyone tried carving Northern Ash, they'll know what that feels like. Anyway, so that's how the first Ania came about, and the customer gave me permission to use that going forward. So grateful for that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So,
but I think it's the transitions, the contrast, the flowing lines. It's your choice of the more or less flat surface, but the relief carves and the coloration difference between them, and how the lines connect. That is the great beauty of that instrument. And so, of course, you should be very thankful for the silhouette, but it was your choice of transitions and contrast that I think probably first caught my attention, Simon.
And that first one was a double cut, so it's still not the same model that it is today, because later on I turned it into a single cut version, and that's, I think it looks way better overall.
Yeah, it's that neck transfer that I have the photograph of. Yeah. to the single cut side. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, wonderful. So that's one of those moments. And so so now you've graduated architecture school, but you've decided to be a guitar maker. You've brought together another a friend who had a CNC that's working out nicely. A customer gives you a 2-dimensional outline that you then apply your style towards, and maybe is the first time that what we now know as your style is recognized. Maybe is that?
That I would say that was the start of my style.
Yeah, wonderful. And this is, what year is this?
2012.
Sorry, 20 what?
2012.
2012. Yeah. Okay. Great. And so, what happens next?
In 2018, I decided it's time to go to some kind of international trade show or exhibition, anything. So that was time when I found out about Holy Grail Guitar Show, and went there
in Berlin.
And that's where I met you.
Yes. That's Jamie walking the aisles looking for interesting, unique, world-class instruments. That's and your instrument stood out immediately.
Yeah, that was important step, because I wasn't sure I was ready for something like that. And when you grow inside of this bubble of a market like Russia, of course I was selling abroad by that time, but still, at that time, most of my orders were still in Russia, and that was influencing a lot of things, including my pricing. And that's a difficult line to navigate when you have to sell to both markets, and the prices for one market are okay, but for another it's laughable. And if you start adjusting for the international market, your local market shrinks.
Yeah.
People like, what the hell? Guitar shouldn't cost that much.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to make a transition.
Yeah, you grow outside of your marketplace, and I've had many conversations like this, but typically, in America and Western Europe and Japan fetch the highest prices in the world for many things, and also parts of the Middle East. But yeah, if you're coming from South America, Eastern Europe, Indonesia, I've had guitar makers from those parts of the world also. The economic realities are very, very different, and they feel often a bit embarrassed, a bit ashamed for the price of their instruments.
I felt that too.
Being elevated. Yeah. I've had guitar makers tell me their neighbors kind of ask how much the guitars are, and they don't want to tell them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I shouldn't name names as to who those people are, but the point is it's not my first conversation about this. And honestly, it's not also about those marketplaces either. I've had conversations with guitar makers who are in, some of the richest countries in the world, who still, their guitars end up being prices that are still very expensive compared to a normal guitar. And it's an awkward moment for them to have to explain that pricing thing. But you had further issues than that, Simon. From what I recall, when you came, and maybe I'm jumping ahead here in the story, maybe we'll get to that point. But from what I recall, when you came to the NAMM show, in your second year with the Padalka Guitar Showcase, I asked you to do an art installation.
Yep.
And you did. And when we were discussing the price, I was like, no, it's way too low. Like all the other art installations here are much, much higher. And you explained to me, Jamie, I cannot accept a payment higher than this amount. I was like, oh, that economic reality had never occurred to me, that you weren't able to accept more money.
Yeah, that was one of the issues. Yeah, I mean, I could, but that involves so much paperwork that was one of the realities of working in Russia. Like, if you're a small bit, it's actually very easy to do small business in Russia, but as soon as you go a little outside of that category, you have so much problems that middle-sized businesses basically don't exist.
Oh, interesting.
So, like with shipping, you can ship one guitar by post. And declare it under $2,000 because that's the only value that they will allow. If you want to ship a couple and declare like what they are, that'll cost you, I don't know, $2,000 and a month of paperwork.
Right. It's not very motivating. Yeah. Taxation is a big topic these days, and tariffs. I don't know if you've heard, obviously you must have, it's what's happening with the US right now. And it's not just the US. There's You know, I know Japanese guitar makers who the tariffs have increased in Europe on Japanese goods, and their European dealers have said your guitars are now not priced competitively. We can't sell your guitars anymore. So it's really not just about, you know, the Trump government and such. This is happening all over the world, this tariff sort of war sort of conversation that's happening. And but it makes a really substantial difference as to what you're able to do and what you're not. You know, I spent a fair amount of time in Italy, and the Italians are always complaining about their taxes. There's a huge amount of cash business done in Italy. Everyone's like, how are you paying? At the restaurant, it's 80 euros with your credit card. It's 40 euros if it's cash. It's like, what? It's like 50%. And you think, well, there's a reason that the taxes are so high. Is because they're only able to tax, 30% of the money actually being exchanged. Yeah. If they were actually taxing all of it, then the whole thing could level out. But who's going to make the first move, right? Like there's now a culture of avoiding the system, which is fascinating when you see that sort of thing. And of course, economics professors discuss this and debate this every day, as to which the right move is.
Well, it was more than that. Like, again, with shipping. So I went to UPS to try and do a proper thing.
Yes.
And they're like, okay, give us a receipt where you bought this guitar. I didn't buy it. I built it. Like, what? You can't do that. We can only ship it if you bought it from someone. Like, okay, bye.
They didn't know how to categorize it. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So basically, you're small or you're selling by containers.
Right. Okay. Well, all right. So here you are. You decided to go to your first international show. You're at the Holy Grail Guitar Show in Berlin. A show that doesn't happen anymore, but was a very well-regarded show. They didn't just accept anyone. You couldn't just buy your way in. You had to be, sort of selected by committee of guitar makers to say, we accept these ones, we don't accept these ones, to keep some sort of a high standard. And you got in at your very first show. So that's amazing, because you got in and that's your first show, a show that many guitar makers tried to get into and couldn't get into. So I don't know if you were really aware of that when you got there, or if that was a first show you tried to get into.
I knew I had to be selected. So I applied and waited for some time. I didn't think much of it, probably because if I get in, good. If not, I do whatever I did before.
Yeah. Okay. And from what I recall, did you have to learn to speak English in order to do this show? Was that part of the impetus? Did you speak English beforehand?
I did speak. I had to learn to speak English when I started selling abroad.
Right.
That was a couple of years before that.
Okay. Tell me a bit about that, Simon. How did you deal with that? I mean, you can use translate programs when you're sitting in front of a computer. You can't in person.
Actually never did that. My English learning was a little unconventional. So I was building guitars full time. I didn't have much time to dedicate to anything else, but I did have a lot of time to listen. So I made myself a challenge to listen Harry Potter over and over again in English until I understood it. I just finished listening translated books.
Yes.
Okay, guess I'll just start and don't stop until I understand. So basically, that's how I learned English. Most of it.
So I thought that was part of the story, but I didn't want to missay it. And so I think that's amazing, and actually there are other people I know in the world who they did by watching movies. They say listening to English music, watching movies. And actually often their command of the language is much better than someone who just went to a course to learn it, because they pick up all the little bits of cultural words and nuances and slang that happen that they typically don't teach you in a class.
Yeah. So after I was getting sick of it, moved to other books, and yeah, I consume like English all the time, constantly.
For how long before you went to Berlin? Before you found yourself for the first time in an environment where your only choice was now to speak English in that space? So
that was the first time.
Okay, and so how long before that did you start to listen to Harry Potter and start to learn English?
Maybe 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Do you know how many hours of Harry Potter you've listened to?
I have no idea.
Hundreds, like thousands.
Probably. It was definitely over 100 times, like 7 books 100 times. So I don't know how many hours.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And before going to Berlin, I actually tried learning German that way. I did pick up some things.
Yes.
In, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 hours listening in German. Did pick up some things.
Okay. Great. I love it. So now you stepped out of, was this your first time leaving your country, or did you visit other countries within?
No, that was my first time, like outside of Russian-speaking environment.
Yeah, okay.
Because in Kiev, it's still a Russian.
Yeah. I've been there a few times myself, and I was surprised to find out the local language was Russian actually when I was there. And so, all right. So you're at your first guitar show. It's 2018. So we said 2018. You're in Berlin. You're speaking English, which is learned over years from listening to Harry Potter and having conversations with English-speaking customers.
But the problem was I never actually spoke to them. It was like emails.
Yes.
So that was the first time I actually had to speak.
Your mouth had to form the shapes and sounds.
Yeah, that was tough. But again, Holy Grail is not as busy show as NAMM. So I did have to speak a bit, but not much. Next year at NAMM, that was, I think that unlocked, for me, it unlocked English speaking, because you literally speak 4 days nonstop.
Yeah.
Whether you want it or not.
Yeah. People who have gone to traditional guitar shows, the ones that are in hotel ballrooms or community centers or something of the sort, when you try and explain to them what it's like to come to the NAMM show, there's no way to comprehend. It is just on a completely different plane. It's like, I don't know, it's like growing up in the countryside your whole life and then being dropped in the middle of Manhattan or a major city. It's
exactly.
You can't know what it's like until you've actually lived it. And I don't mean it's a bad thing, because we came there to do business, and there's a lot of possibility for business, right? So all day long, you were talking about your guitars. Very few breaks. There's constantly someone there who wants to talk, wants to pick it up, wants to touch it. And, oh, yeah, you're trial by fire now. Yeah. So, yeah. And you did great, from what I recall.
Yeah, it was awesome. But every single show, like Holy Grail, first NAMM, second NAMM, each time you told me to raise the prices.
Well, because I'm aware of what everyone else is selling for, and we're aware of your work. And I'll tell you, by the way, I don't know if your friends have told you this, but all of the guitar makers that you saw on Instagram or on the Facebook or whatever it was over the years, pictures can look one way, and you get it in your hands, And there were guitar makers who were very excited to meet you, but they were kind of hoping you weren't as good as you looked. And they were like, it can't be as good as it looks. And they walked over and they saw your guitars and came over to me and said, fuck, it is as good as it looks. They'll love you. You guys have I think you've developed some good friendships from those meetings. But there really was. I don't remember ever having that experience with someone else, because, as you said, you were in a bubble, and no one else had interacted with you either, or your guitars, and they were aware. They looked really good, but are they actually that good? And indeed they are. Your attention to detail is, I don't think anyone makes a more refined guitar than you do. There might be some who match in that sort of level, but it doesn't. You probably think there's ways to improve, but you're at the top.
There's ways to improve, and
yeah.
There are people who are doing an awesome job, and which actually are as good as they look on social media. It's not just me.
No,
there are plenty of people.
I agree. I mean, if you pick up a Teufel guitar and look over it, you'll also find like, wow. And actually, I remember years ago I was traveling so I used to sell 2 stores, Teufel and Ritter and Nick Huber and such. And I remember I was driving across Canada when I came to visit Dingwall. And Sheldon said, do you have some Teufels in your... I said, yeah. Can you please bring a few in so I can show my guys? And then he was like, guys, look at this. Can you imagine sanding this spot right here? But Uli Teufel's an industrial designer, and he has 40 sanding blocks. All of their different shapes or different densities of foam, or to get the right sort of amount of pressure, the right sort of curvature to sand that spot. You have to design a specific shaped tool to get into that specific shape you designed.
But that's not the only problem. You have to see it.
Yes.
So I had several apprentices back in my shop, and I was really surprised that nobody could see the shape. Like, just sand the sides by hand. Nobody could do it. Like, then I found one guy that actually learned to do it, and it took him a few months, and then he's like, now I see. Like, it was an aha moment, like, now I see what you mean. So, not everyone, and not at once.
Yeah, life is a story of, or a layer of experiences, that we sometimes we don't know that's important until we've had to deal with it or had a problem with it.
I think I got this, found it in me from my architectural days. The attention to the shape and pristine shape. Everything should be perfect, because my dad works in high-end architecture, villas, things like that, and that's what I mostly see, because architecture is super diverse. You can get high rises where you build as fast as you can, and there's not much architecture there, actually.
The time is money approach.
Yeah. So what I saw growing up, it kind of translated into guitars. Everything should be perfect is a given. I don't see it any other way.
Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com. Are you serious about the business of guitar? Then you need to join us on Patreon. We're building a future where guitar makers are able to live prosperous lives making instruments that inspire the musical experience, which helps to create a more beautiful world. where others who are passionate about the guitar can thrive. Those who help in the promotion and resale, trade shows, writing of books and articles are supported as a valuable part of the community. A community where we explore with curiosity and encourage those around us in their endeavors. With a community effort, we can accomplish far more than we can individually. So let's be serious about your guitar business and join us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Jamie Gale Music. We are better together, so let's do this together. I love where we've been, and I'm excited about where we're going. Yeah. You know, I was with someone the other day, or in a conversation, and they were talking about something Michael Greenfield said to them years ago. Michael's a wonderful acoustic guitar maker, a former guest here also. And Michael says, you know, it's either a miter or it's not. There's no good miter, bad miter. It's either a miter or it's not.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, yeah, it either meets exactly right or it doesn't. There's no other option. But, you know, there's lots of people who can fill it up with glue or finish or sawdust, or, you know, we invent little colored putties to fit into those spaces to make up for our works and such. And but you were like Michael Greenfield. You're one of those who pursues the right way to do it without the
I guess so.
Yeah. And so that was part of. Now, was that challenging to grow up in a home where perfection is the norm?
Not really. I didn't know any other way.
Okay. That's really code for Simon that you behaved perfectly. That you did a good job of navigating this expectation within your home.
Because when something is a norm for you, it is a norm. But
yeah,
you don't know any better or any worse in that case.
Yeah, wonderful. And in high-end architecture, you deal a lot with materiality and special materials, right? Because you say, this costs a lot more, but look what it does, you know? And you justify spending the money because of what it can do for you as far as beauty is concerned. And that's something that beauty is often expensive because it's beyond the function. Right. It's beyond just mechanically, will this stand up and not fall down? Right. Will it stand up and provide a beautiful environment in which we behave differently in, that we observe and that we want to enjoy that space? Right. I realized at one point in time I was living in a house where I spent so much time avoiding being in the house that I was spending a stupid amount of money every weekend just not being home. I thought, well, how much is that really? Maybe you should just move to a place you like to be in.
Yeah.
And I went to a more expensive home than I was living in, but I didn't avoid it all the time. And in the end, I actually was spending less money monthly because I was in an environment and you know, that means a lot to me. I think you know this. I live on a lake in a cottage here in Canada in a beautiful place. You know, I'm a few meters from the water here to my left. And I also, you know, live in Tuscany in a beautiful spot. You know, we split our time between the two places because beauty does mean something to me. But I have friends who food is fuel. It's like putting gas in the tank. They don't really care. I can't believe you spent that on a dinner or a bottle of wine or whatever, you know, and they feel the same thing about how much is that chair? You know, like they can't wrap their head around it. And I don't blame them. As a matter of fact, sometimes I look at them and think, must be nice actually to kind of live unbothered by that idea of it has to be a particular way. Everything is just function. I don't really mean that, but I can see that there's some benefit to living where you're easier to please, let's say.
Yeah. Oh, it all translates into guitars as well. So when it's nice looking and nice feeling, it's just more fun picking it up.
Yes.
And every time someone asks, why the hell is it so expensive? And why wouldn't you just use something simpler? Like, okay, if you don't care, then you don't need it. but someone does care.
Right.
And someone wants a beautiful piece of art to inspire him.
Yeah, it's to have something that they truly value, that when they open up the case or pick it up, they feel like they're experiencing something, a moment of value, because it's not just a thing to them. They worked hard to get it in the first place, and the experience of playing something that is very well designed and functions very well as an extension of your body, because humans do that. It's not just guitars. We can feel around with a screwdriver and we can identify what's at the end of the screwdriver in the dark. That's we truly do take objects and extend our body out and through those objects. And guitars are one of the most remarkable things to do that with, because they're so responsive in what they do and they can be manipulated so well. And when you're not fighting with that object, when it's effortless to make the moves and to have less resistance between your inspiration, your thoughts, and the mechanical movements, there's a real joy to that.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I also have friends who order hamburgers without ketchup or pickles or anything on it, a meat and a piece of bread. That's the way they want it. I'm like, okay. So all right. So we're back to it. We haven't quite sort of gotten you to where you are today. And so here we are. You've established yourself in Russia. You've had an interesting moment with your brands and identity coming out of this Ania. And then you have to engage with the greater outside world. So you have to start engaging in English. You listen to Harry Potter a lot. You're probably really great at Harry Potter quizzes or trivia nights.
I never try them.
I suspect you do very well. You make it to Berlin. In Berlin, you get to see the other guitars for the first time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, tell me about that for a second. Let's not fast forward. What was it like to walk into a room like that for the very first time? Because how many other people had you even experienced other guitars of? Like, did you have any peers where you were?
Well, the guy that I worked with, and his stuff is also actually high quality. The designs are different, and that's fine. But so everything that I was surrounded with was actually either made by me or by him, and it was all really good quality. So when I walked into Holy Grail, I was immediately pulled to the guys of the same caliber, I'd say. So the first ones that I remember were, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name.
It's okay. Give me a bit of a description. I might help you out.
They're from Japan.
Jersey Girl?
Jersey Girl, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I know some stuff. Just describe. I'll get you there too. So Jersey Girl, yes, remarkable.
Yeah, super high quality, very nice details. I love that. Yeah, and also Teufel, amazing. I really wanted to see that in person.
Yeah, and then they noticed you too. Because, that was a room of very high level guitars. But what I'm looking for the unique world class guitars that are contributing something to the conversation of the guitar, which is, I think, the most discriminating description in the industry. Which means when I'm in a room with a couple hundred guitar makers who are all doing great work and who are all making a living making their guitars. They're all are valid guitar makers. This is the thing I struggle with. People think that when I don't stop and look at their guitars, it's like I don't like them or don't like their guitars. That's not it. I'm looking for something very, very specific that's changing the way you see the world of guitar. It's changing the way that you perceive what is possible and what meets a different need. And so when I would go to a Holy Grail Guitar Show, there might be 200 guitar makers there, but still there were only maybe 20 of those, maybe 10% of those that I would engage with.
That's your privilege as a curator.
Well, yes, and I have to be discriminating. My privilege and my disadvantage, because there are people who really get their feathers ruffled about that. I want to tell everyone, hey, you're great. Keep doing it. I'm sorry if there's not a place in this particular show for that, but it doesn't mean that you're not valid. It doesn't mean that you're not a good guitar maker. It just means that, hey, man, it's a really high bar. And so, anyways, and you stood out, which means to me, I don't know this for sure, but I suspect there were a number of guitar makers who came to you to say, oh, look, you're doing great work. How did that feel to have other guitar makers validate your work?
To be honest, I don't remember the conversations from the Holy Grail. Mm-hmm. Probably because I wasn't as proficient in English, so I didn't pick up on most of them.
Yes. And they probably would have been subtle about it. They would have been like, you know?
Yeah, I guess.
What does that mean?
Guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some nice conversations, but I wasn't tuned into picking up like phrases or anything like that. So the only thing I actually noticed is when someone texted me, "Oh, I'm driving like across Germany to see. I didn't know you were exhibiting there." But that was the only thing that I know.
Okay, all right, great. That's fine. All right, so you're there, and then you come to your first NAMM show, the first boutique guitar showcase for you, and you came back the second time, then with the art installation. Yeah, which is when we had the conversation about pricing and what could be reasonable with this and such. And okay, so now you've been to Berlin, you've been to the NAMM show, and at the NAMM show you meet the entire world. You would have met people from everywhere, basically. At Joe. Yeah. So what's anything else significant from that point on? What's the next step that you think is important in your career?
The NAMM show opens the eyes to the actual situation. Where are you in this niche? Mm-hmm. And because before that, again, I was working in a bubble of myself and my customers, and that customer base is growing within another bubble of like-minded people. So it's a kind of a feedback loop where he builds something likes it, he shares it to his friends, they want something similar. And so, it's all growing in one direction. And that was, I both like and dislike it at the same time, because on the one hand, it's easy and effortless. On the other hand, it's not always going in the direction that I personally would have chosen. So I sometimes make those one-off, two-off guitars that I want to try this style, and I want to try that style, and ultimately fails because it's so outside of this direction that I was going.
Yeah.
But I kind of learned to accept it. It's just, okay, I'll have some fun. I'll make what I want at the moment. But the NAMM show really showed me the opportunities, the niche that I was in, and the price ranges that I should be in, because then you can actually go and look at other builders' work, and be able to orient yourself. Okay, so there's a room full of people doing pretty much what I do in this range, and I'm definitely outside of it. Probably not a good idea. So.
Well, great for some customers who are getting some
a
really great guitar at a very low price, you know. And so I'm sure there were people who knew that was happening. Yeah.
And with that art installation, I also didn't. I know that the art is more than the function, and it costs more than the function, but still that constraint of my past experience didn't allow me to realize that. So, okay, this is a guitar plus a little bit of art, so it should be a little bit more expensive.
Right.
But actually, no.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a Rembrandt doesn't sell for the cost of the paint and canvas, you know. Exactly. And so it's very hard to judge the value of art, like it really is. And so it's not surprising. It's always a conversation. Like every single year, somebody makes an art installation, and I walk around talking to them about what they're going to value it for, you know. And it's never an easy conversation. Nobody knows. We kind of guess, you know. But there's a certain point where something is not respectable. At a certain point, like if you're used to operating within a marketplace, and something comes for a very low price, you're like, is there something wrong with it? Do I not understand what this is? Why is it so cheap? Why is it available right now? You know, we talk about this with lead times with guitar makers all the time, you know, like, well, customers don't want to wait. You know, I want to get to them in like 3 to 6 months. I'm like, yeah, but all of your marketplace competition is 12 to 18 months. And the basic economics is scarcity. If it's available, it means that nobody really wants it. Yeah, it's not valuable. And so you're sending these other messages for people who are operating within the ecosystem. You know, it doesn't mean you bullshit. It doesn't mean you lie, but it just means that you need to communicate in a way that doesn't kind of scare them away. And you think, well, why would that scare them away? It's a good price. No, because there are reasons to think, well, if it's weird, it's not that way. That happened to me recently. I was in a store and there was a Toomey suitcase. Toomey's a valuable brand. They're about, you know, $800-900 for a carry-on suitcase for US dollars on those suitcases. And it was in a store with a clearance tag on it for 133 Canadian dollars. I was like, this can't be right. I picked it up. I unzipped everything. I checked out absolutely. The whole thing worked. It worked out. It's legitimately a Toomey bag. And I walked up to the cash register and I said, is this the right price? They scan it. I'm like, yes, sir. Take my money. But you don't know how to behave at first. You're trying to understand there's something out of place. And so that's the challenge sometimes is, and you were in a particularly complicated scenario because you were within, as you said, a bubble within a bubble within a bubble, you know? And so, so coming to NAMM helped you understand, helped you triangulate your position within the society and culture that you were selling within.
Exactly. And also after NAMM, so basically going to NAMM makes you more legitimate. Like it's a badge of, what do you call it?
Honor, respect?
No, Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so you went to NAMM, you're immediately more trusted
Mm-hmm.
by the customers, and my reach expanded, and my waiting line filled to the point where now I see why I have to raise prices, because this is just not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And especially since I started making more intricate things, more complicated inlays,
Mm-hmm.
things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And I kept a ridiculously short lead times.
Mm-hmm.
That started to become impossible. So there were a couple times where I had to extend the lead times, raise prices just to manage the workflow,
Mm-hmm.
and keep that waiting list more or less manageable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, at the end of 2021, I had a waiting list, 2-year waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to move.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you talk about this? I don't know how much you
Sure.
are comfortable talking about. It's I've had Omer Deutsch here on the podcast also. At a time where there were rockets landing a few,
yeah,
couple kilometers from his home. And they had been in the bomb shelter and such. And most of our listeners won't have experienced anything to do with war. Or war, even war in countries from a great USA and Canada live in a bubble in the way where we're not connected closely. Nobody comes across our border into our land in the way that happens in more connected places than where we are. But our listeners are in, I think, 50 countries around the world. So there's some who'll know what you're talking about. But so bring us in. So you've now been to the outside world. You've been to Berlin, you've been to the NAMM show, you experience people from all over the world making instruments. You now have an international business. You have demand of 2 years that's happening. You're raising your prices. A lot of customers don't understand this. Guitar makers have a choice. When your demand goes up, you either figure out a way to make a few hundred guitars fast, or you have to quell the demand, and you quell the demand by raising your prices, which means ultimately some people make the decision, I can't afford that anymore. And therefore your order list becomes lower, right?
But that's the idea, because
it didn't happen to you.
I can't help it. Everyone, somebody has to cancel their orders in order to.
Yes, absolutely. And there are many different guitars at many different price points in the marketplace. It's like nobody's going without a guitar. You can get something, within your range, and you can shoot for something later on. So, all right. So you've had a couple of years, you've been battling with getting your orders under control, because that can feel stressful at first, right? You want to make people happy. You want your customers to be happy. And so.
Yeah, I also had another move, because my workshop was like, I had to move a couple of times because the workshops were demolished.
Oh.
For future construction.
Okay.
Yeah, that region is a fast-growing place. So
yes.
All the old buildings that I occupied
are
scheduled for demolition.
Yes.
And it took me about a year to build a workshop that I really liked. I made it really high-end and like a nice place to be in, as opposed to the places that I worked before.
Right. Felt less like a factory.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like home.
Great.
But again, I spent 1 year building it and another year using it before I had to move.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it was mostly a rational decision based on economics more than anything else. Because this is my job, and I have a market, and I was cut off from that market. So the only rational decision was to go inside and actually live inside that market.
Yeah. All right. So do you mind going a little bit into this scenario? I mean, you're somewhere. You're not in the government. You're not in the army. You don't make any of these decisions. You just have to live with whatever decisions are being made. So bring us into your life for a moment when this major change happens. Do you mind telling us, like, you find out, were you expecting something to happen? Was it just overnight? All of a sudden you're in a completely different situation, or how did this happen?
It was basically overnight. Like, you hear that news and like, that is stupid. That can be true. Then a few days go by and like, okay, it's actually happening. And then the consequences come, like the sanctions, and cutting off the transactions, like PayPal pulled out from Russia. Okay, I'm in trouble now. So I have to do something. And I didn't think that I would be in a situation where the war would actually come to my place. I mean, I'm relatively close by. It would under 1,000 kilometers to the border. But still, I thought of moving for a while, even before that, but it never made much sense.
Right.
Because as long as I could live a comfortable life and selling abroad, that was fine. And actually, the cost of living there is so much lower. It was actually nice. But yeah, when things like that happen and it's more and more unstable, you don't know if you'll be able to work. Like, you can always find workarounds, but then your life turns into finding those workarounds instead of actually enjoying it and doing what you like. So yeah, that's why I contacted you to give me some advice and at where I could go.
Yeah, that was you're there, you're in it, you're getting really affected. From our side of things seems so incredibly small and insignificant compared to somebody who's really, really affected that way. But I had been having conversations with a few friends, like, where they were talking about, what can we do? Like, can we do anything? We're action people. I deal with entrepreneurs. I deal with people who get shit done. We travel the world. We do things. We make things happen. And so when something happens and you're like, I don't know any practical thing that I can do to help this situation. And then I got a message from you. I was like, oh, maybe I can do something practical to help just a little bit. And your message was simply this: Jamie, I'm cut off from the world. Do you know anyone else who might hire me so I can move and be somewhere else? It was that simple, right?
Yeah. And I had to find someone to hire me because there was no other way to immigrate, basically.
Yeah.
Because you could immigrate as an entrepreneur, but that takes a lot of capital and a lot of time.
Yes. Yeah. So. Yeah. And so you and I had a quick Zoom call, I think. We got a Zoom call and we discussed what it is that you were looking for, what you were hoping to do with that, and it was pretty clear. I mean, I think you basically named Australia, New Zealand. I don't think Canada was on the list, actually. I think I said...
Yeah, I thought about Canada, but like, maybe I want to go somewhere warmer.
Yeah.
But,
I get why you would choose Australia over coming to Canada. Nobody's surprised.
No, actually, I didn't want Australia because I don't like spiders.
Was it New Zealand, or where did you say?
Yeah, I did. Like, my thoughts initially, it would have been nice to go to New Zealand, but I don't know anyone there.
Right.
To
Yeah.
And as far as I know, it's almost impossible to move there.
I do know people who have moved to New Zealand. Actually, even one of my podcast guests, Gabriel Montez, he's a neuroscientist. He moved to New Zealand, and just because he wanted to.
But that depends on where you're from.
Sure. Of course.
Yeah, because
you're right.
I feel that bit of a stigma. From Russia.
Right. And you had experienced a bit of that when you were going to school in Kiev. You had experienced feeling unwelcome. And so you were looking to avoid that for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, your basic criteria was you want to go to kind of a safe, friendly place where they're not likely to declare war on someone else. I think.
Yeah. And English speaking.
And English speaking. Yeah. And and so, I have connections and contacts and conversations with people all the time, all over the world. I do a fair amount of consulting work also for other companies and of all different sizes. And I knew that Sheldon Dingwall was looking to grow and was having a hard time getting people, because it's a relatively remote city in Canada. Saskatoon is not a big city, and it's much colder than where you came from. And so there's a lot of reasons that people don't want to go to Saskatoon. But I think the people are lovely in Saskatoon, and you can have a good life there. And, so anyways, I don't think I did much after that. I said, I think, are you interested in Dingwall? You said that could be a good solution. I think I called Sheldon, and within maybe
I think
hour,
it took
or within a
couple
of hours, like a half an hour. Yeah, it really wasn't much. I picked up the phone. I called Sheldon. This is the situation. And I told him explicitly. I don't know if he's told you this. I said, listen, this is one of the best guitar makers in the entire world. This doesn't happen. Guys like this don't look for jobs with guys like you. And I don't mean to say that's bad. I just mean guys who can build on your level. There's very few scenarios in which you're looking to go work for anyone else, period. Right? And this was a circumstance where that was going to be a possibility. And yeah, within like a half an hour, I think Sheldon was talking to you and his immigration lawyer. Yeah. And things happened, boom, just like that. Amazing. I mean, it took a while.
Yeah, it took a while.
The acceptance of the idea, like, we want to do this. We want to put time and effort into this, because it's no small effort on Dingwall's side either, right? Like, they engaged an immigration lawyer. They made time. They're making a big commitment to this guy who I don't think Sheldon knew you. Yeah. Did he know you at all? He was based on me. Like, he asked me about your personality. Do you think you get along with the guys? All this stuff, right? And so it was a kind of a risk for everyone, on that side. But you've been there a few years now.
I had so much help from them. It's amazing. Yeah. And actually, it's so much better than I hoped at the beginning. Like, when I called you, I was ready for go and get a job. And I considered like closing Padalka Guitars for good, or for a long time at least, like, just to be able to move from there.
Yeah.
But what Sheldon offered was like, it's an amazing deal. So basically, I have a day job here, but like outside working hours, on weekends, I can come to the shop and build my own stuff in this facility using their equipment. So I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
So, I did pause my production for, it took some time to move here first, and then
you had to make an intermediary stop, didn't you?
Yeah, I had to go to Georgia.
The country of Georgia, for all of our American friends.
Yeah, the country of Georgia.
Yeah.
So things started in February 2022, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I needed some time to finish my current builds and to sell my workshop, mm-hmm. because I couldn't take it with me. And especially since I knew I'd be working at Dingwall, I didn't need all the equipment.
Right.
And I didn't want to all those problems moving this across the world. Mm-hmm. So I sold my workshop, and basically by December, by Christmas, I moved from Russia. I drove to Georgia because you can drive there. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons, because in September of that year, there was an announcement, like massive conscription. Oh. And like, we're about to close borders, nobody comes out. Mm-hmm. There was a massive rush of like a few million people moved away from Russia within a week.
Okay, wow.
Obviously, I couldn't do that, and because I was still finishing stuff and selling the workshop. Anyway, nothing extreme actually happened, hopefully. But also, none of the embassies were open in Russia. So all the embassies closed as part of the sanctions. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't apply for a visa from Russia. Mm-hmm. So that's why we moved to Georgia to apply from there. Mm-hmm. And it took 6 months. So I stayed there for 6 months. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then 6 months later, you were able to come to Canada.
Yeah. So okay. May 23, I started working here.
Right. May 23, 2022, 2023. Which year was it?
May 2023.
2023. Yeah. Okay. And that's and so how is it? You're in Canada. You're now working. You've got a boss for the first time.
Yeah.
Ever? Did you have some jobs before? You said you did some work in architecture, some 3D modeling and such, but
yeah. But I worked for a year in Kiev as a 3D modeler. But most of the time I was just working with my dad.
Yeah. Okay. So now it's been a couple of years.
Yeah. But, it doesn't feel much like having a boss in the sense of corporate world. Because Sheldon's such a nice guy. And especially when you're aligned on the goals. And it doesn't feel like you have to bend to someone's will, because our goal is the same.
Yeah. And I suspect, although I don't have any evidence of this, but I suspect you probably make each other a little bit better. Because you both shoot really.
Yeah.
I
definitely learned a lot here.
Yeah.
Mostly the business side of things.
Yes. Yeah, it's Dingwall is doing great. They're growing really fast, and they've got a great team of people there. I work very closely with Dingwall, and so I know the guys in your office, your social media guys, your sales guys, your COO, all the people there, and it's a remarkable group of people, all very kind, all very excited to be a part of something that's growing. You would know better than I do. You're on this, but that's my impression from what I experienced with it. And I know
it's weird. It's weird because most of the guys say, like, this is the first place where I want to come back and work. Like, this is the first place where it is where it's such an amazing company that you want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that, because in my mind, this shouldn't be like something weird. It should be a norm. So
should be, but often isn't. Many people spend their lives feeling underappreciated, feeling like they don't really care about the product or about the culture of which they're working within.
Well, I've never experienced that.
Yeah, no, not you, but so and your father and your mother, they also did things that were valuable and inspiring, right? And so that's been your whole story, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's why it's so comfortable here. Like, it's my kind of environment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I knew you were doing great, because every time I asked Sheldon if there's something else I can do, he'd be like, "Do you have another Simon for me?" I'm like, "Oh, not today, but I'll keep it in mind," So that's about as much proof as I need that it's working out well on Sheldon's side also. Is that he's asking for more guys like you. So,
yeah. And I'm also happy that he's started actual master series.
Yes.
I've been waiting for that, because even though it's so nice here, since I am part of the team and it's a production, you have to do some repetitive stuff, which gets old really fast. And the opportunity to actually make something creative.
Yeah.
Something I've been waiting for.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful piece. Do you want to tell us about that? So, I was aware of that ahead of time going into the show. Dingwall's in the Boutique Guitar Showcase. I was aware for a while that these master built pieces were coming along. I knew that you and that Paul were doing basically what you wanted. You could get to make your own within the Dingwall catalog, of course, but you got to make it your way. And I saw the pictures before anyone else did. We had discussions about how to market it, how to position it. And so, but I've not actually spoken to you about it. And ironically enough, in the conversations when I spoke with the marketing guys with Dingwall and Sheldon, I was like, "Have you asked Simon about his specific thoughts about this?" I said, Simon's an architect, right?" They're like, "Did you know Simon's an architect?" Like they didn't know. So a couple of the guys are like, "No." I said, "No, Simon's like an architect and from a family of architects." And so the reason I tell you that is that he really thinks about materiality and finish and that very specific paint he chose and such. If you just ask Simon, he's going to open your eyes to what you think you're already seeing. And so tell us about this first sort of master build that you did and what you're happy with about. What was your thinking behind it?
Well, I like a little bit of sprinkling of architectural materials in guitars, like this art piece that I made for NAMM with the slate top and the metal powder finish on the back. Now I found this pigment that when you apply it the right way, it kind of looks like titanium. And so I wanted to incorporate that cleanliness and refined minimalistic look into the Dingwall design. So what I decided is to make little pieces of black flame, black flame neck, black flame contrast layers on the body, but the body itself is solid, this titanium-like finish. And just keep the two materials, black flame and this kind of titanium. to get that stylish, minimalistic, and a little bit understated, but so unique
Yes.
look.
And particularly amongst that particular model, because that Dingwall model was the Prima Artist,
Yeah.
which is very normally a buffet of figured
Oh
woods.
yeah,
Like it's a lot of visual information.
It's meant to be a little bit over the top.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yeah.
That was the idea to bring a different look to
A subtle sophistication to the Prima Artist, which is not normal for that. So you could show your mark within it. Yeah.
And to give you a little bit of context, I don't know if it's a fact, but I like to think that I nudged Sheldon into making remastered series, because a year before he asked me to join the Prima team, and so me and Paul work on Primas.
Yep.
And when we were going through, like, they didn't make Primas for a while, and before making one, we went through the process, like making test cuts. Also, I was getting training on their CNC, so that was part of the process. So we made that test cut. Everything works fine. Okay, we went to do the actual piece, but I didn't want to waste that test cut. So I thought, maybe I'll do something Padalka on it. So I made it this reverse serre finish that I do on Ania bases.
Yeah.
So I applied it to that. It was, I just took this body and made it. Then I showed Sheldon, I like it. Like, oh yeah, cool. Put it together. And yeah, I like to think that this was the start of a master series.
Yeah. You know, that the picture of that base is on your website currently. I was looking through your site in preparation for our conversation, and yeah, it looks fantastic. Yeah, love it. So I'm also a sucker for white instruments. When done right, I really like the minimal sort of approach of white. You know, even what's happening behind you right now, which I've slowly identified actually is the photo booth supplies.
Yeah.
But it looks architectural, and it looks like the way it's laid out right now. You know, you have the different curvatures, you have a cylinder. It doesn't look so different than the way a product photographer might keep some pillars and backdrops and such around, you know? And so recently, I don't know if you've seen them, but in airports right now, Dior has a big advertising campaign. And the Dior campaign is simply a very large wall, and with all of these hollows in the walls and many different Dior dresses on busts, not on people, on busts, no heads, no legs. But the whole thing is white, and all of the Dior dresses are white on this white background, and all you get is line and form and texture, which is no distraction of color at all, which I'm a total sucker for.
Yeah, I love white finishes. I just don't like painting them.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then we go down the pathway of white is not white. You know, which white? What white are we talking about? That's how
it's actually not about white. It's just about minimalistic finishes.
Yeah.
When you try to do something very clean,
yes,
it's never actually clean until you painted it over a couple times or a couple dozen times. So yeah, that finish on the master build took, I don't know, 10, 12 attempts.
Right. And that's part of why unique guitars have to be sold at a higher price. You know, you don't get the benefit of working out the system, working out all the kinks. You got to do it on that one guitar and then never do it again, often.
And there's more than just laying the color right. Because that I was trying to hit the exact sheen that I wanted. I didn't want it to be too matte because that hides the little bit of that iridescent shimmering.
Yep.
I didn't want it gloss because that's a little too much and much less subtle. So hitting that balance was also quite a challenge.
Yeah. But you did it.
Yeah.
Feel satisfied?
It was a relief.
Yeah.
I was getting a little desperate by the end of December.
Sure. Okay. All right. That's great. Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com. Are you serious about the business of guitar? Then you need to join us on Patreon. We're building a future where guitar makers are able to live prosperous lives making instruments that inspire the musical experience, which helps to create a more beautiful world. Where others who are passionate about the guitar can thrive, those who help in the promotion and resale, trade shows, writing of books and articles are supported as a valuable part of the community. A community where we explore with curiosity and encourage those around us in their endeavors. With a community effort, we can accomplish far more than we can individually. So let's be serious about your guitar business and join us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Jamie Gale Music. We are better together, so let's do this together. I love where we've been, and I'm excited about where we're going. All right, so now here we are. You've made it to Canada. You're with Dingwall, and now it's time to do some work on Padalka Guitars again. So bring us up to date now.
So I designed a line of models. I started with the Supreme, which is a little bit of departure from my usual design. And it's one of those cases where I make something way different and it doesn't perform as well. I mean, on the market, not like perform as a
sure
functional.
It functions well, yes. Yeah.
But the reason I went with it because I wanted to make another version of my headless hardware, and I didn't have the time to do it last year. So I started with the Supreme, which is a regular guitar with a headstock. It does have my new hardware, but it's much less work than a headless one.
Right.
So this summer I actually finished the design and prototyping of my hardware, made some parts. Again, thanks to Dingwall, I could actually do it right here because they make their own hardware. And so I got trained up on the new CNCs and got my hardware done. So I actually have my own. And just today I've set up my first order that I got in Canada for a headless guitar. So
great.
That's a nice little milestone.
Yes. Now, I'm afraid to ask this question, but is it your new headless guitar that's going on tour with the Padalka Guitar Showcase? Or
Yes.
Okay. Well, there you go. So for those who want to experience it in person, it'll be on tour with the Padalka Guitar Showcase in the autumn. And 14th. Yeah.
I'm actually thinking of making a batch for sale and going a little bit in that direction since I can't actually build a lot of Padalka guitars here.
Yeah.
Juggling the time is a challenge.
Sure.
So I'm going a little bit of exploring in different directions, like making hardware. Also working on finishing here at Dingwall. There was a challenge that I encountered coming to a different market, because once you're in the European part, you know the European manufacturers. You come to North America, everything's different. And the finishing supplies, especially, because none of that is getting shipped overseas.
Yeah.
And I found an amazing top coat back in Russia. It's an Italian company, and they don't sell it here. So I spent some time looking for alternatives. Finally got it figured out. So I'll be working on getting that to other builders, because this is something everybody wants, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody who made a matte finish guitar and seeing it a couple of weeks later with shiny, buffed up
spots,
armrests.
Yeah.
They feel that. Because again, it's such a sophisticated look when it's nice and matte, and then you get those burnish marks.
Yeah.
It ruins everything. So finding that durable matte finish is almost impossible.
Interesting. There was an Italian guitar maker by the name of Bruno Bacci at the Boutique Guitar Showcase with a bunch of matte finish guitars, and I wonder if he's using the Italian company we're talking about. I'm not sure, but I certainly know the issue. And even guys like Uli Teufel, he uses an epoxy, but he has to spray it super thin and on a rotisserie. His guitars are rotating constantly. He goes through a lot of effort to get that finish. But I have seen his matte finish guitars decades old without the shiny burnish spots. But most people aren't willing to go through that kind of work that he's willing to put on that guitar. You probably would be, but most people are looking for a solution.
That's why I spending so much time finding in this new market. I have to find the other solutions.
Yeah.
Turns out it's not as easy as I thought.
Right. Well, okay. So let's try and move this along here a little bit. So we've got some exciting new things to see from you coming. I haven't actually spoken to you, and I hope it's okay. I'm going to mention it on the podcast, but you're a father now. Congratulations. You had young Matthew. He's 9 or 10 months old now. Is that right?
9 months. Yeah.
9 months. Amazing.
Yeah.
He's
an amazing dude.
How's life as a father? How's that changed you?
It's hard to say, because now that I am one, it kind of feels like it was forever. Thinking back before the fact, I don't know. So your mind flips into another gear, and it just stays there. It's hard to imagine it any other way.
Right. Well, he's kind of an extension of yourself, right? I mean, that is the whole point, to pass life on, and that's how we do it.
although I must say, it's a little. It wasn't as clean of a transition, like having no kids and having a kid, because I married before moving to Georgia, and my wife has a kid, a teenager, so I have a teenager stepson.
Okay. How old?
So I 17.
Oh, so you have a young man. That's a,
Yeah.
yeah. For most of human history, that's a grown up. That's not a child anymore.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I think of him. I think of him as a grown up.
Yeah.
And but he's also a child. And
Sure.
so there's not, as I say, it's not a clean transition from no kids and then having kids.
Right.
Uh,
because it's also not your wife's first baby. Then she's also been through that part and has. Well, that's also kind of nice. You've got an experienced partner who's got some skills there already. So that's that's good. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that part of it. So wonderful. So Matthew is growing up then with an older brother already.
Yeah.
At this point. And okay, all right. So hopefully we'll meet him one day. We're big family people. You know that, and because our kids work with us, and we haven't trained our grandson yet to carry a guitar case. He's only 16 months old, but he'll get there. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. That's the nicest. It's nice that he's Canadian.
Right, he's born there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So the first Canadian generation of the Padalka line. Is that true? Do you have any other family in Canada that came here first, or
no?
He's the first Padalka born in Canada.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, that's the story of all of us. All of us Canadians, are from somewhere else. Even the oldest of us, the natives that we talk about. We still talk about them coming across a land bridge, actually from Russia. From that part of the world to here. Nobody claims to actually be from here at any point in time, and so we're a nation of immigrants, really. Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the reason that I feel more welcomed here than anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because that's a place, as you say, a country of immigrants.
Yeah, we all of us came from somewhere, and we're mostly very interested in the other people. It's like, oh, what kind of food do you eat? And how do you say hello or thank you in your language? We want to exchange that information. Oh, can I try whatever you're eating? We're very curious about the rest of the world.
And to be honest, I never felt at home in Russia because I'm so much more different than I felt like a weirdo most of the time. Because nobody makes guitars in Russia.
Right. And now you're surrounded by guitar makers every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
and it's not just that. It's a mentality. Being happy in Russia is historically a disadvantage. Like when you're too happy, then you must be doing something wrong. So, yeah, it was like that feeling of not wanting to tell how much a guitar costs.
Right.
That's a historic thing. When you're making too much money, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. That I haven't read it myself, but I'm not going to get it right, but I think Dostoevsky, the Gulag Archipelago, I think, this famous book, and in this he basically describes growing up or living under an environment where everybody is lying all the time and you're all expected to just go along with the lie. And that's a very that's an old book. I don't know if that's current day Russia, but that was the way it was under the.
Not really, but
yeah.
So factually, no.
Yeah.
But the feeling stays.
The feeling stays. Even amongst the young people, because you're fairly young.
So I never experienced it myself.
Yeah.
I was born I was born in the Soviet Union, but
Just
I'm 88. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like 1-2 years, right? Like you don't remember the change. I mean, it didn't change so fast. I mean, you remember the change.
But those things, they carried through, like, in your you've been raised with that feeling in your parents' mind.
Yes.
And so it gets transferred to you as well.
Yeah. My first experience of Europe was actually as a musician. I was touring, and when the Soviet Union fell and when there was access and movement between the East and the West again, I was, as a musician, I've played first in Tallinn, Estonia. Like, I got a call like, hey, can you learn like this set and get a passport and be there in 3 weeks? I was like, where? But so, well, it sounds actually kind of cool, so I'm going to make it happen. And I did, and so I played for a week or two in Tallinn, Estonia. And I've also played all through Poland, and I've played for a week or two in Kiev in different venues as I was around. And the thing is, when I was in Tallinn, it was very clear. Older generation kept their eyes to the sidewalk at all times. They never looked at people. You never caught eye contact of the older generation. The younger people would look you in the eye. You would look as we passed in the street, but the older generation never made eye contact. Not with strangers, anyways. I'm sure they did at home, But and that was the first time I ever experienced that. And so, anyways, to contrast that, you're here in Canada, you're in Saskatoon, which I think is a friendly place. There's lots of people from different parts of the world. As a matter of fact, I think there's a traditionally a large segment of the original Ukrainian immigrants there in Saskatoon.
Yes.
Is there not?
Yes.
Yeah. Does the Russian language exist still there? Are there people speaking Russian?
We hear it now and then.
Yeah. Okay. But you also hear Urdu and other unusual languages because you're in Canada, and that's just the way it is. So
yeah, it's nice to go for a walk and hear Russian swearing.
Oh yes. That's the opposite of my experience. So where there is a band, and first of all, I'm Canadian, but I'm always internationally, we're always confused as Americans. So we're getting on the bus after a gig, and there's someone yells from across the street, "Hey, Americans, Coca-Cola, motherfucker!" Like, he knew like 5 words, and he used them all. Swear words are often the first thing to be learned in many languages. They entertain us somehow.
What I mean is, you don't have to be constrained by societal rules. So you can
you mean you
in
wouldn't
Russian.
Hear them in Russia?
No, I mean, you go outside here, you can swear in Russian, nobody cares.
Right.
And when you hear that, you
yeah, great. Cool. Well, I'm glad that you're feeling welcome there. Simon, as we sort of draw this to a close, is there something that you hoped that we would talk about today that maybe if I were a better interviewer, I would have known to ask you? A topic or something you wanted to discuss?
I don't know. I think we covered most of it.
Okay, well, that was your chance, man. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on Life with Strings Attached. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll see you next year at NAMM.
Yes, I hope so too. A triumphant return.
Yeah. As long as I can get my US visa.
Right.
Turns out Canada has the longest wait list of all countries.
Oh, well,
yeah.
I can tell you that NAMM does have a special, they give a letter to say about coming to NAMM show.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
just to book an appointment for a US visa interview, it's 600 days.
600 days. Yeah. Okay. Well,
I'll have to fly to some other place.
I got one of my Canadian passports after we were robbed on the Boutique Guitar Showcase 2 years ago. We had our passports robbed in Texas, and we got temporary replacements in Los Angeles because we're foreigners. We're Canadians in the U.S. without passports now. And we were flying from our last date in the U.S. in Seattle to our first dates in Europe. And so we had no intention of going home to Canada. So we've been through that bit of consulate in LA, you get temporary white passports. Which is the white one? Again, I love. There's a white passport instead of the other color, so you can identify it's a temporary passport. But they took it in Vienna. We got there, and the Canadian consulate in Vienna got our passports there, and so yeah, there certainly are Canadian consulates in other places, and maybe because you're now in Canada, maybe the Commonwealth will be helpful. So if you go to like the British Virgin Islands, then you can see palm trees, warm weather, and get your visa.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Something like that. Well, good. All right, Simon. So we're going to wrap up this part of this. Before we carry on, for our regular listeners, you'll know that we always have a little segment at the end called The Business of Guitar. But we hide that behind a small paywall, because we're going to talk about things that the average person shouldn't hear about. You got to be in the guitar business to talk about that kind of stuff. And so if you are in the guitar business and you would like to hear what Simon has to say on the business of guitar, then head on over to patreon.com/business of guitar. Again, that's patreon.com/business of guitar. And Simon and I will carry on for another 5 or 10 minutes over there. So, but for now, we'll say thank you and goodbye, Simon.
Ciao, yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks, Jamie. Been nice talking to you.
All right. Ciao for now. Thank you for watching and listening. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. And a special thanks to those who support us on Patreon. It's your support that enables us to do this work.